Andrew Broussard. Today I have a very special painting video for y'all. This is one that I've been thinking about for a while, and with landscapes it's easy to jump into. I could have a photo, can usually work from front to back, and you get something that I'm happy with. And that's kind of where, I like painting. That's, I guess you could say I'm a landscape painter at this point. But from time to time, I do paint buildings, and I do get asked to paint paintings of somebody's house, of their building. And this is one such case. So, a fantastic lady who I've met before, who is essentially, I guess, a patron of mine, had asked me to do a portrait of her house. So we're out riding bikes, and this is where this conversation took place, and I was actually taking photo material, photo references for this stuff, and just painting in general. So I grabbed some photos of it, and I was going through it and trying to figure out which one would work best and whatnot. And she had said the southern side of the house, where it kind of catches that light at the end of the day. So so here's the photo I'm looking at. I'm going to stand it up in the background in a moment. It obviously has kind of like the oak tree in front, and we have some really bright white brilliance. It may take a few different painting sessions, not different sessions for the same painting, but doing different paintings multiple times to try to achieve it right. But a few things that I want to keep in mind, and for you all to keep in mind, is, first of all, the play of light and dark that's going to take place. And I'm going to paint fast and loose, so it's not going to be all there in detail. And some of these shapes and structures and whatnot. So we're going to want to keep that in mind. We're going to want to also keep in mind this horizon line back here, how it sets everything in place, as well as on the other side back here. How much we wind up doing on either side, that's debatable, but we'll play around with that. We'll see where everything sits and lands. Okay, so let me fold this guy up, set him up in the background, move my bottle of ink. Now I'm going to saturate my paper with water. So I got a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua. I'm not gonna lie, getting a little low on my watercolor paper, so I'm hoping that Blick.com will offer a good deal this week, so I can order a lot more sheets of this, because within a day or two I can go through a large sheet of the paper, and yeah, that's a lot of paper I go through. So anyway, so I'm going to saturate it with the water, and we'll clean off the palette, which I kind of did before. So we just need to spritz it. We'll get some ideas about how we're going to work around with this. That's good enough. I had done, like I said, some of these things in the past, buildings like this, and there's just so much greenery here that I am going to have sap green on this. And it's not to just rely too much on sap green, but more, it's just super convenient, and I think that it'll really work with this. It's a terrible reason for doing that. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna are going to be my back and forth grays for the colors on the building. I already have light red oxide out. That mixed with the raw sienna is probably what I'll use for the stone steps. I need to get some Payne's Gray out here. What else? Okay, we have lemon yellow out. We have our other colors, so I think we should be good to go. So anyway, another thing that has made me hesitant with painting this is that I went through my photos. I really didn't personally have, I think, the best photo reference of this house, because as you can see in the beginning, the forefront top of the this house is covered by the tree. And not that I don't think I need to see that. It's just I need more of a mental view of the house and whatnot. I know it sounds a little weird, but we are in the middle of, the whole lockdown, COVID-19 and whatnot. So I didn't really go onto the property to take photos and whatnot, and I was photographing out by the street. Last time I had done a painting like this was for a wonderful woman who was getting it as a gift for her husband for Christmas, and she was an artist, an art teacher, and her husband, a construction worker, owned a construction business, and they had rebuilt a beautiful Victorian house. And her father was actually a well-known artist, and she gave me a tour of her house, and we were able to walk all the way around, all the way through, and take like 1 million photos all over. And it was a very historic house. Now this house, I don't know too much about, and this is ultramarine that I'm just playing into the Payne's Gray. This is to just create a little background sky that'll pop through the tree once I put that in. This house, I believe if you do look on a map, they would call it a historic area within the town that we live in, within Abbeville. This area, I do know that it had flooded back in 2016. And this house, I'm not quite sure if it had. If you remember from the photo, you can see there's that raised up that it has. Now, interesting thing about houses in Louisiana, and this happened to my neighbor, is that if a lot of people raise the house, and I think that's to let the air flow underneath. And it's also, I would think maybe there's a little bit of flooding aspect with it, but I think it's mainly for airflow. So if we do get a freeze and things like that, pipes will often burst. But my neighbor's house was raised, and the person that they had bought it from had put brand new bamboo floors in and all that, just beautiful house. And the person they bought it from then in turn had put metal wiring, metal guard all the way around the side of the house, essentially blocking and trapping everything in. And this meant that air couldn't flow, moisture built up, and within a year, all these bamboo floors just started coming up. And I was over there helping them pull out the floors, and we pulled out that metal strip all the way around. It was quite intense, and everything had to be replaced. And standing down in that floor, just like I said, the house is a little raised, and then the area underneath here in it, it was like being outside. It was so hot and humid. Now, I'm going to take some raw sienna, and this is going to be the background horizon. So these are the trees on the horizon. I'm going to come over it with sap green in a bit and kind of put variety in place. But kind of just starting to shape everything out. This is the background tree back on this side. We'll wind up having the side of the house here. It'll wind up coming down, and this will be the front of the house. Just starting to shape things out. I didn't do any sketches of this one, and like I said, it may not be this first painting that will be the final result. It may take a few paintings. Okay, so that's just the background. We're not going to focus too much on the roof since we can't really see the roof, even though I do talk a lot about how we want to create the object and then paint over it and create that illusion that's taking place. Come up on here. Steps will be here. We may have to pull out the whites in that spot. Okay. Let's take some sap green. Mix it with ultramarine, kind of blow it down, cool it down. Background. Yeah, so this house, like I said, I don't know too much about it, but I could tell you about the area. I think that the town used to have a lot of business that ran along the Vermilion River. I'm on one side of the river, she's on the other side, and on both sides of the river, very close, there's these beautiful old Victorian houses, or they even date back to being what's called, I guess, an Acadia style house, and then added on during the Victorian era, which would be like, I guess, what, the 1870s? So some of these houses are super, super old. For the other house that I was telling y'all about, she had told me that when they did all the wiring and all that, they had to pull out, I guess the wires used to be covered in actual cloth, like super fire hazard. Just building up the sap green. I don't want to go into too much detail in this background. We just want to kind of get the illusion of it. The grass has that yellow green to it, so I can put that in to help start shaping things. We do have a walkway that takes place right about here. Let's see. I think I want to lower the house some. That's what we're going to see through right there. This will wind up being darker grass. Okay, so I'm going to switch to a drier paper towel. Pull up. Yeah, it's going to lower that bottom edge. I'm going to lift right here, soak up some of that extra water. This will help me start creating things. Okay, so the house will be in here. Let's start playing around with that. I'm going to keep the background as that wet and wet still. Let's wipe some space. I believe I said we'll use ultramarine blue and Venetian red, not Venetian red, burnt sienna to make our colors for the house. So it'll kind of be a back and forth. Now this is something I learned from Rick S. He has a very prolific YouTube channel. He is a very good painter and very great tutorials. And he has some paintings that he does, barns and whatnot. And, you know, they're just really just fantastic. Okay, so let's keep that about here. Bring it back here. So this is the bottom part, the stonework that's lifting up underneath the deck itself. And we have the white. We start having the railings. I'm just putting in kind of just a light tone just to shape everything out and catch the shadows. As I said before, I haven't done a building painting in quite a while, so this is the way I'll go about approaching it. I need to get this to sit flatter. Okay, we're going to pull it out this far, so I'm going to erase some of this green essentially. In the front of the house, so perspective wise, come there. Okay, so we have the perspective line taking place. One of the things I am concerned about is just cramping it up too much. We're going to wind up putting in this tree here. So I'm just mapping everything out in my mind. This guy, like I said, is going to be covered by the tree, so we don't need to worry about the roof. Let's pull out here. I keep on widening this house, but I think that that's the correct thing to do for this guy. It might be is this. Well, we got to lower here. That's what it is. We got to lower here and shift there. Bring that out there. Yeah, I think that puts that more into place. Okay, so now that I kind of have what I am comfortable with, let's experiment with this background a little bit more. Now we could kind of play around, have fun. So, Payne's Gray and Lemon Yellow, that'll give you a green with this palette. This is the Ron Ransom palette with sap green added at this point. That's a little too Payne's Gray. It's just a little too dark for a background for right now. Even though there are some trees and trunks and shadows. That was another thing I spent a lot of time thinking about with this one. even though I wasn't looking at the photos, I knew the area. I've ridden my bike in this spot. I take a lot of photos of the coulee that's behind it. Coulee is like a Louisiana, a ditch, a canal. And I know that there was a canal right back in this area, and I remember standing, I was over here on this side when I was talking to her about this painting, when she had asked me about it and to do it. And I just, since then, have thought about this background and how it would go into place. A lot of thinking happened with this one. And I feel bad because she had asked me about it a while ago, and most of the painting I've been doing is kind of the experiments, but also just to like paint to stay sane during this whole staying at home. So it's been a little rough. So just getting that edge. Now, this does come out right in that spot. She had also sent me a picture that she had a sketch that was done of the house. I don't remember if she had given me the history of the sketch and who had done it, but that had a dimension of a 16 by 12, while this page is 11 by 14. So she wanted something that would go with it, and I've debated size-wise. So it might have to be repainted again if the size is not to her liking. And I told her, and she asked me how much and deposit and all that. And I was like, listen, you know, and this is just the way I am because I'm not like a professional painter. I didn't need a down payment or anything like that. I was just like, I'll paint it, and if you like it, you can, you know, say, yes, I want to buy it. And if you don't like it, I understand. You know, I don't know if that's a lack of confidence or just the fact that I would rather prefer that somebody was like super happy with something that I did as opposed to reluctant to acquiescent, reluctant agreement. That's what acquiescent means, to reluctantly accept. Acquiesce in purchasing it. This is fun. It has been a while since I, like I said, have done a building. That's one of the things I learned from Rick as well from his videos, was the spray bottle, where you could kind of just come in and re-wet stuff and move things around. I am having a little artistic license here with this shadowing in this walkway, kind of pushing in the sides on the outside and letting the painting, the building expand a little bit more. Speaking of buildings, I mentioned earlier today in a painting a gentleman in one of my art groups, Colin Woodward, and how he had done perspective with the city insides. And somebody in the group had commented, man, you should have been an architect. And he had responded saying, you know, in school he wasn't allowed to take art, but he was allowed to take, I guess, draftsmanship. I think he's from England. I'm not sure exactly what it was. He's an older gentleman. For me, I think it was AutoCAD that we took. But, yeah, so he wasn't allowed to do art, but he was allowed to do that. So it's funny how, after all these years, that he now utilizes it in his art, and that ability stayed with him, what he learned. Yeah, so a lot of these old houses around here, super beautiful. One day, I'd like to buy a house, but unfortunately, a lot of houses. First of all, I wouldn't be able to afford a house like this. Second, a lot of the houses, I think, there were some flooding issues, whatnot, and the older houses, I can't imagine the amount of maintenance or what you need to do to bring them up to speed. The other house that I keep on referring to in this video, they had spent a few years, her and her husband, renovating it. I think she had started in 2004, is what she was telling me. Now this is a mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. And here, I'm just kind of doing kind of a negative painting. Just doing that dark, leaving the light for the post. Her and her husband had spent years rebuilding that house, where I think I said that the wiring, they had to switch things up and whatnot. I have a brush hair right there I'm trying to get up. Just years rewiring it, renovating it. She was like, we tore down walls and we found windows that were hidden and boarded up. We found, and we pulled the ivy off the wall outside. We found a chimney that the current neighbors didn't even know was there. It was a lot of work. But then again, I guess that attests to prior owners and whatnot. Luckily, I have a friend, Bill, who, if he ever watches one of these videos, I'm calling him out on this. Whenever I do buy a house, I'm going to have him over to help me renovate and rewire everything and do all that stuff. Yeah, he's very talented with that. My dad was an electrician by trade as well. He would know how to do all that stuff and be able to help with all that. And that's one thing that you could definitely say about people from Louisiana, or at least the Cajun country. A lot of people know how to do their own housework. And one time I heard that it's like, well, I mean, we have to rebuild so much after all of these hurricanes and all that. I'm just putting a little bit up in here. This is just willy-nilly, mainly because, like I said, tree will be in front of that. Let me get a little Venetian red. Venetian bread, and ultramarine makes a nice relaxed purple. I think that'll help with this in front too. I want to go more blue now. Okay, so now I'm starting to look at posts and seeing where everything's located. There's the hand railing. And then we're going to need to put the vents alongside the house. So they're just a little bit darker, but we're going to have to bring some more sharpness eventually. think I had said light red and raw sienna. That was going to be for our steps. And we'll have to come in with the rigger after we dry off to play around with that a little bit more. This is kind of putting just all the tones and shapes in, and then I'll play around with it. In fact, since we are still wet and wet at this point, I could feed in some structures back in here. I could come back with a green. Build those up. Okay, let's do a dry off. Let's also see if I could correct this. That's sorry about that noise. At this point, you probably know that's the cats. Okay, so here's a dry off. Alright, that should be good. Let me play around with this background. So this is a different approach for me. I'm going to mix up a green, ultramarine lemon yellow, and this right here, that right there. We got some more lemon yellow. I'm gonna have that overhang. A little bit lemony yellow in here. Okay. On this other side, we have our dark green. I'm guessing that this is what they call negative painting, where you're painting around the object to give it form. Meaning I'm painting the green so that you can see through the pillars as opposed to painting the pillars themselves. So by creating that negative space, I'm creating the pillars. Bring it up a little height. Bring this one down for perspective. All right, lemony yellow. So that butts up against the house. So this is the grass now. Variation of the tone to give the idea of shadows in the yard and whatnot. It does pass in front. Okay. I could go ultramarine blue and raw sienna, burnt sienna, sorry. That's what we've been doing for the colors of the house. So here, we have that underhang, under the overhang. So that's the building itself between the pillars. The grading on the underside, perspective, bottom of the deck, corner. There's kind of a rounding that takes place right here. That's interesting. We might have this a little too sharp. So that lemon yellow. Just bring that in here for right now. Bring it up and behind and out. All right, Payne's gray. This is to on this bottom edge. The steps, the line is almost horizontal. Okay, mixing some more of this. I can use this same mixture of the ultramarine and I have Payne's gray on here, obviously. Ultramarine and burnt sienna for this walkway. I'm going to lift that out right there. Okay. Let's come back. Plop some water right there, that's fine. Now there's tons of these little posts right alongside, so kind of like a little decking fence. You don't have to count and do each individual one. But I'm going to darken this grating alongside. Is that Haynes or Harrison doing that? Darken it up, Payne's gray. I think that's Haynes. Okay, it's the underside. Now there's a little variety in texture, so I'm going to try to dry brush. Then Venetian red, not Venetian red, light red oxide. For down here, right along that edge, there's a little flower bed, which I'll bring up in a bit. And while I have that pigment here, I can mix ultramarine. I just don't want to get too pigment concentrated right now, which is exactly what I'm doing, but it's wet and wet, so it'll disperse. Okay, go back to our kind of gray for the house. So this is the top of the railing in front. And it comes to about here. So we have this post. We have two posts that kind of layer. One post along the railing and one post right there. I'm going to take this, and then there's little holes, little dots, so I'm going to dot those along. Kind of little accoutrement pattern thing in the top. I'll bring that over to the other side. Once again, we have that same dark post. And so I'm just going to go along, like I said, not counting or anything like that. But the whole kind of idea is that it gives the illusion of it. You know, this is more an impressionist, fast and loose style. Even though I'm still sitting here splattering paint on the painting as per usual. Okay. Now there is another dark line there. I'm going to try to shape out some of this post. That's a little too warm. All right. Let's see, where to next? Now we need to start darkening the front. Right about here is the front door window. And then on the other side of these pillars, there's the front door window. Hope that's not too wide right there. This guy would be bigger, it'd be closer. There's some darks along here. There's a variation in darks. Playing that. Post. So here's the other side of the post. There's chairs on this front porch, and I'll put them in a little bit more in a bit. There's another post right here. I don't know if I should be calling them posts or columns. Okay. Whew. I'm gonna grab some lemon yellow. This is fun, but for me it's challenging. As you know at this point, I don't go this detailed, and I don't usually use a rigger for this long, so it's kind of almost like a drawing as opposed to a painting. So I'm just going to move to another spot. And like I said, I'll show her this one. I'll send her a picture. It's too late now if this one comes out good or not. It's like probably 9 o'clock right now at night, so I don't want to wake the lady up. But I'll send it to her tomorrow if it comes out good. We'll see what she thinks. Like I said, this is just a version from the building, just moving to another spot. I'm always a fan of building things up all together. I could do ultramarine blue and actually lemon yellow and Payne's gray for kind of the shadows for the trees. Whenever I started painting again, about a year or two ago, my friend Brooke was like, my coworker, friend, was like, "Oh, you should you do house portraits and stuff like that." And I never thought I'd be doing house portraits. What I'm trying to do is add variation in these tones. I think the next time I order because like I said, I need to order more paper. Oh, and that's a great way for me to say, hey guys, if you're ever interested, I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to join, check it out down below. And I have exclusive content for Patreon members. Okay, with that out the way, I do need to place another order and get some paper in. But I may order a tool that I've referred to. It's called a maul, artist maul. And what it is, it's a long stick that you can kind of rest on the paper and you can put your hand on top. I have seen advertisements for other things that kind of act like that, but I don't know. Or maybe I'll make one. Or maybe I mentioned my friend Bill earlier. See if Bill can make me one. If Bill is watching this, I'll be like, hey, Bill, I did help you build that whole deck. We had so much fun. He's having a pond. He had a pond put in, and it took like a year for this pond to be dug and all that. It's huge. And we rented an auger, and me and him on either side of it, lifting up and down, drilling holes for these pillars that he was putting in. And he built a dock for to go out over part of the water, for the kids to fish from and jump from and all that. And that was really fun. So we'd put up the pillars, and I am gonna brag for a moment. As you guys know, I coach powerlifting and all that. So whenever they're like, instead of getting like the ATV whatever to pull the pillars to different positions, I was like, listen, just tie a chain to it and I'll just pull and let me know when to stop, and pull it into position as we were trying to square everything off. That was fun because we were working with his brother-in-law, who the other day, he was helping me with something. We were working on something with epoxy, and I was like, well, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You guys have more experience. And he's like, no, I don't. And I was just like, all right, let me rephrase it. You're older. We were just teasing each other. And anyway, so it was me, him, and Ted. And I believe this guy, Sean, was there. And yeah, Sean was there. So it was like a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but very intelligent cooks. And it was really fun seeing and learning from these guys on how to square up these, what I guess they're 18-foot, 16-foot pillars that are standing up and down. And if there is anybody young out there watching these videos, my best advice is to learn from the older generation. You'd be amazed what they know or their way of thinking. They may not be right all the time. Don't get me wrong. They may not be right all the time, but they really do know a thing or two. Right now I'm just kind of mixing darks and feeding them in to different spots. Rambling often helps me get a little bit looser with this. It was either that or filming a time lapse, but I wanted to film this just in case it came out good and she liked it, and that she could also have this video to of the painting process of her house. Though I'm sure she's gonna love my rambling. She's a really nice lady, very involved in the community. I met her husband too. I don't recall what he does, but he was very nice as well. Just good people. And that's what's important. Just put that back there. Stand up and stretch. Okay. More Venetian red. Play around with these steps. The whole purpose of that right there is just to give the underside of this pillar. And do a corner right there. And we have the flower bed, which I'll put some of these brush in. Okay. Let's see, this is a lot darker. And that there. This is that front door window. Just feed a little bit of color in. Tone. Push it in closer. This is another window. Now I can get lighter wash. These areas. Darker. Go down in here. This is more Payne's gray when I say darker. If it's dark. Still wet. Wet and wet effect is definitely my friend right now. That tree trunk is going to come up here and it's going to come out and over. Okay, let's do a dry off. Okay, so I filmed this live and somebody came on, Atomic Tiger Eye, was asking how long you've been doing this. I think we could probably say we're about 40 minutes in, maybe a little bit longer. I usually paint landscapes, but I was requested to do a building. It's been a few months since I've done a building, and it's a little bit slow going. I had to do wet and wet and kind of model out. I didn't do any tracing or drawing or anything like that, and I had to kind of push some things around to kind of get perspective going. Then I did a dry off. I'm starting to put in like just kind of tonal values with it, and then we're going to wind up putting in, from the photo, there's an oak tree that comes up in front and covers over a lot of this. I omitted a lot of the top of this building because I just don't have a photo reference of the top, and I want those lights just to show through the tree. So that's how long I've been working on this one for. I'm usually, like I said, fast and loose painter with the hake brush and whatnot, but it's fun. It's a challenge, and if the person doesn't like it, you could always do it again. For those of you that are first-time watchers, I'm a school teacher, so we're like out of work right now until like August. So what else do I have to do besides film painting videos? Start bringing more shadows in. Let's see. So it's going to be more impressionist. It's really not going to be like architecturally perfect or anything like that. It's just to catch the idea of this person's house. I may even come back in with the magic eraser to erase some of these spots and bring out the whites again. I think it is time to do this tree though, so let me this is where I really have fun and start to shine with the tree work. And we'll go back in with some more detail at the end with the small rigger brush, but I really want to start putting this tree in now. And this will kind of give me an idea in retrospect how much time and detail to put in on the building itself. So it's kind of a weird way to think about it. Okay, so I'm mixing my dark, so burnt umber, ultramarine, okay. You can shape the hake brush with your fingers and whatnot, just be careful. Okay, so it's going to come up on this side right here. I'm going to feed colors into it and build up. This is a big oak tree. This is a painting in and of itself. Okay, so it comes out in this fashion. Whenever you do a tree, you want to kind of ground it. Okay, so let's see this tree. This comes up, over, extends. it has this guy that comes out right here, and we lose him off the paper. We have another one right there. This is the one that winds up affecting the whole painting. This one that comes over, he starts coming out this way. This one has some light that it catches, and then it darkens up again. It comes out. And what we're going to use the same brush to put a lot of foliage in. We're then going to use the rigger to put branches in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's spread this guy right here. Then we have tiny branches, but we don't have to worry too much about those. This guy comes here. This guy comes here, goes off. Okay, he's emaciated right down here, so we gotta create that. He has some mulch around him, so we'll just use that light red oxide as the mulch, and we can lift for mulch texture if we want. I'm going to let him come off the edge of the paper. Okay. This is drying fast. Let's see. Since it's drying so fast, I can start putting my first layer of foliage in. And here, I'm going to grab raw sienna. There's going to be a lot of different colors. Values in it, but I'm going to start shaping it out. It comes down low, this oak tree. Okay, let me get lemon yellow. So I'm going to utilize most likely lemon yellow, sap green, ultramarine blue. We're going to go back and forth and build it up. I am going to take time between foliage layers, mainly so that we don't, we want some wet and wet blurring to take place, but I don't want all of it to be blurred. Ultramarine blue. That she pushes a little bit green. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the rigger. So this is the number 4 rigger that I started playing with today. I utilized it in the mountain painting, mountain painting, just in order to get a little bit more pigment and water down, as opposed to the number 1 rigger, which was a little weird for me since I usually just use the 2 brushes, the Hake and that, but this guy's been proving himself useful. I'm starting to accentuate these tree trunks. And I'm doing it right now, the tree branches and the tree trunks, just so I could let this first layer of foliage dry, rather than me just going back and forth between like back and forth between dry paint, dry paint, dry paint. So just letting that work. Now with this, you want to keep in mind, and I'm doing it contrary to what I usually say, you want to get a lighter wash with some of these branches, and that's going to give an illusion. At the end, you'll see the effect. Right now it just looks like crud, but what it does is it the lighter will give the illusion of light catching on it, as well as receding back into the painting, into the picture plane. While when we come over it darker, it will then look forward, so it gives a density to it. This tree is three-dimensional. It's big, it's imposing, and it deserves to be treated in such fashion. We don't want to make it like a stick figure. And we could feed in raw sienna into this trunk. We can give it a lot more life than it has so far. So vary the tones, vary the concentrations, the colors, and it'll start coming together. This guy's like super dark, so we're gonna have to build him up. So sometimes trace over what you have there if you need to darken it. Other times create other branches. In fact, he has this big old shadow that he's casting. So let's also start putting that in mind, putting that tone down. Shadows from other trees coming in from the side. I'm trying to paint to the extreme edge because, like I said, she wants it to match up with a, I think, a 16 by 12 of the house. Okay, let's do a dry off. We'll come back in with more foliage. So now we start putting in more foliage. And it's light going for right now. It's going to build up layer by layer. Okay, I put some Payne's Gray and Ultramarine. It's a little too dark, mixing in that lemon yellow. All right, let's see. So there's just a lot of different approaches to foliage, and here what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to look at the picture itself, but if I was doing it imaginary and whatnot, I would look at different density layers and different concentrations of darks and lights. Hopefully I didn't go too dark too soon. And I'm going to come in with another layer of branches. This actually comes down in front of the house. And that is what starts putting everything in place. So once we're done with this tree, we'll then go back to the house. This tree being almost the centerpiece is going to take a lot of focus right now. I'm trying to dry brush to get texture. I could actually take a muted raw sienna with ultramarine and put that down in here and put it on parts of the trunk. I gotta focus on branches though right now. So I really don't need to look at the picture for the branches. You'll get the kind of idea of where they will flow out and whatnot. So like I said, vary the tonal value of branches. So as you layer them, you create all this depth for the tree. This is a #1 rigger. It's my usual rigger brush. Like I said, I pulled out the #4 today for some hill mountain work, just to put down more amounts of water. It's great because you can use it like calligraphy. There's all these tiny branches that come out. I don't want to, right now I'm kind of pushing it off in this direction, but that leads the eye off, so we got to figure out artistically how we can stop that movement from taking place. And I'm going to try to get these guys to hook a little bit, where we can create this guy come back up. There's little movements. He is very stiff right now, very rigid, so we got to get a more organic curve to him. Let him come down and cut in front of these guys. I do want to take a little bit of color and put it in here in the sky holes. They're a little too bright. We do have another tree that comes from this side, so I think that what I need to do is create that element there, and that might be the blocking image, and that darkness from that tree will help stop the eye from going off the edge. Grab some sap green. Grab Payne's Gray. And that's that blocking dark. Which then could have a shadow down here. And that will really start to make things pop in tonal value. I don't want to make it just one smooth thing. I want to leave it a little dry brushy so that we can get that little bit of light that shines through and casts. Sorry, let's just shine through. I'm just getting a little spaced out while I think about this. Paper towel for texture over it. That's always fun. It's kind of, I guess, like the sponge technique, but paper towel. Bring this up a little bit, but I don't want to ruin perspective with it. It has to lighten up as it goes back right here in order for this to recede. I could have kept it like that and then darkened this one up to make it come forward as well. So there's numerous ways I could have approached that. Same thing right here. I start affecting perspective. Now, one thing you can do is when we have like a large quantity of foliage down, you can use the card to scrape in, and that adds another just textural effect. So tonal values, meaning lights and darks, and textural effects really help things to start work out. Rather than just having a flat mass of something. I'm going to come back in with another layer of foliage. Right now, I'm just putting in texture. Let me go get something to drink. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and so my my fiance's here. She just came to look and just offer a little bit of criticism about where I'm at right now. Like I said, I'm mainly a landscape painter, and working from this photograph back here, so you see the photo. I built up the background here, the building. You can't really see the roof in the building, so kind of using that as just like the lights to come through the tree. And then building this guy up, and then I'm going to come back in and put the porch stuff and whatnot. What do you think so far? Anything that doesn't seem to make sense perspective-wise, or?
I think I would maybe just darken up these, the tree lines that you have in the painting, the picture, just so that way it doesn't seem like a green blob background, because they kind of fade in to the background. Another thing is maybe, I guess you can't really go over.
I can go over. What do you think?
Well, the white, the house is white.
Yeah. What I can use is I have the magic eraser, and I could cut it to the shape and wet it and
erase it.
Erase it, yeah, and try that out.
I would do that. just so that way you get the crisp lines of the house, because the house isn't green, especially on the sides, just so that way it's straight.
Yeah, on these where it comes over and right here. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in these parts where it's actually showing back through the back to the green, right back there, I would maybe add some thin lines to show some, tree branches or little trees, just so that way you get that it actually is the background and not a mistake of like color, instead of like going from gray to like an accidental green. Again, just cleaning up the white lines.
I'm gonna build this tree up more. How's the curvature of it? Because I don't know if it's looking a little too stagnant. I need to lower this guy, not because of the picture, just so I don't match it up too much coming out left and right.
The tree on the picture is actually more straight, so I would maybe add some on the bottom, make the base wider coming up, so it seems like this part's already straight. You see how it kind of curves down? Yeah. That's a straight tree. Other than that, I mean, just when you get to the point of like detailing, which I think you will have to do, that's the point of the thing. You're gonna have to just take your time and like cut these out, especially like that needs to be a clear, crisp line, because that's where the window pane and whatnot is. Just making sure that the grays and the blacks and the whites don't meld in together too much. Okay. Since they are very crisp, and coming back and fixing those lines to where they're straight.
Get more crisp and straight.
Yeah. Another thing is, I don't know if you could maybe put something here that really accentuates that this is the end of the stairs and that this is ground. I know it doesn't look like it there. That's what was
throwing me off. Yeah.
Especially maybe putting a line here that this is the edge of the house, because this extends out and wraps around, but this needs to be somehow showing that this is the ground, especially if you're using this centers. This is where the door should be. These are the two windows she has. There's nothing right here that says that there's the door. I know you have that
I need to pretty much draw that in with the rigger.
Yeah. So the details I would do with either a pen or a very, very fine paintbrush.
Yeah, I'm going to use this guy.
Yeah. But other than that...
And then I have to put in the...
her little bushes, yeah.
Yeah.
I would maybe see if you can lighten this part up, because it's not as dark over there, because that's actually green, not black. Dark green.
Yeah, that'll help it recede, yeah.
No, these little boxes.
Yeah, these guys, and that'll help it recede better. This should have actually been a little bit higher, I think. This little peak, perspective-wise, and cut down a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little too parallel. Okay, so I'm going to play around with that. Do you want to grab me like a fresh cup of water?
Yeah.
If you don't mind? Yeah.
Like one of those, or just a clear one?
Like that. I mean, maybe dump that out, refresh, fill it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm going to continue working on it. And
and just make sure that the she's got her walkway. Don't let the walkway get overshadowed by the shadow.
Yeah.
It still needs to be out.
Yeah, because I'm going to have to use fresh water for the magic eraser.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right, let me get back to it. Thank you. Are you going to go pick up your sister?
Yes, I'm on my way.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for your commentary. So that was my fiance giving me some insightful advice on this one, a different view, which is always appreciated. Oh, she has my cup of water. She's getting me fresh water. So sweet of her. Okay. Oh, I knocked everything. It's okay. It's okay.
Me?
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay, see what happens, Harrison, when you come in here?
Yeah. Sorry, one of the cats knocked everything. They came in. She didn't knock everything. I didn't mean to.
Thank you for
throw her underneath the bus.
Correcting the blame. I'm just going to put this over here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pick up all of you. Sorry.
So when she had moved in, we moved in. She has cats. I think I told you guys about the cats, and I mean, you guys hear them crying in the background like every video. No, I'm just throwing shade at the cats. They're really sweet.
No, they really do. They just want to be artists. Cute.
Yeah. No, but the cats are really cool, and I love them. On the grocery shopping list, I added wet food for the cats, and I've bought them about 30 toys at this point.
Too many toys.
Yeah.
I have my game still up. Please don't close it.
Yeah, I want. All right, have fun. So you're going now?
Yeah, it's 9:30.
All right, drive safe. All right. Bye. Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
All right. I can still hear you yelling at cats. I do want them to behave. Okay, so back to focus on this. This is, like I said at the very beginning, a very special video because there's just so much going on and so much detail. And I am not one to do a painting and walk away and save it for another day. It's one and done. Which, interestingly enough, I had read, I think I told you guys about Whistler, how when he did his portraits, and I was reading about his portraits because I was trying to figure out how portrait work fit into the whole grand scheme of tonalism. And he had done a lot of portrait work and whatnot. And apparently he would have them sit and he would paint them sometimes up to 60 times. He wanted to get it all done in one go. And if it didn't come out perfect in the one go, he would then do it again and again. And he wanted the oil painting to be all one skin, is what he referred to it as, I think, like kind of one layer. Which, the book that I was looking through and reading that, there was quite a bit of sympathy for the sitters that he was painting, which is a pretty intense way to paint, I guess. But he was an eccentric guy. I've shared some stories about him, why I have a little bit of disdain for him because of how his friend asked him to paint his, this was painting his friend's room, but his friend's room was pretty much like a historical antique, like a couple 100-year-old room that was historically important, just like priceless. It was just like leather, the paneled walls, all that other stuff. It was just crazy. Anyway, long story short, Whistler did paint it over for him, like touch it up, not touch it up. He put peacocks, he changed the color. He cut the guy's priceless Persian rugs in order to fit the way he wanted them to fit within this. And he turned this guy's bedroom into a freaking gallery while the guy was out and about. And needless to say, when he came back, he was quite angry, PO'd. So, yeah, James, that was James Whistler. Ooh, I think we might use what's called Titan Buff on this painting as well near the end. That'll be fun. Actually, so let's see. There's quite a few things that we need to put in. So let's go back to the building for a bit. And let's start putting in these drawing details that me and her were talking about. And kind of cleaning up some lines and whatnot. Now what's interesting is, she had said lighten some things up. like the walkway. Make sure you don't lose the walkway. But sometimes you can darken the area around something to try to lighten it up. Whether it'll work or not, I'm not sure. This tree does have a slight tilt to it, so let me correct that some. Actually, do I want to start playing with the Buff Titan yet? Not yet. Buff Titan is a little chalky and can contaminate the rest of the palette, so I'm going to avoid that for right now. Now, she did express concern about this diffusion that takes place right here, but I might actually leave that in as a stylistic effect. And the front door is between these two posts. And through the trees I can see those windows up top, so that'll give us more shape as well. What else do I need to... This is the hand railing. I clean up this line. And that's where the that tool that I was telling you all about, the artist maul, that would help. Okay. And she was right, these are more green. So what I can do is I can wet them and lift them and lighten them out. Let me designate the brush to the Buff Titan Buff. I could also use the white gouache. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is put this on a separate palette. And I'm going to utilize, let's see how light it comes out. This is the number 4 rigger. If I could get thin enough lines with it. I just want to mix up too much water and get my water all corrupted. Yeah, we can use that. Like right here. It's kind of like an off-white. I may actually pull some wash into this one. And it may be good to have the two to get a variety between them. Let's see. Oh, way too big of a blob. I'm gonna grab, this is white gouache right here, and I'll put that that's the white gouache, so it kind of has a slight difference. I guess you would call the Titan Buff a little bit creamier. Just pulling water in. Okay, so we'll come back and forth with that. Let me get back to detailing the front of this house. And then we'll go back into our tree. Right down here. Okay, so let's go back into the building. It's actually a chair right here. A little bit of shape. There's the chairs here. do want to darken up some of these. Let's see. Okay. I guess let's go back into the tree. So start things off. Let's get a lemon yellow sap green mixture. So we're continuing to build up the density of this tree. So that's a big thing we've been talking about, building up that density. One thing I could do with this painting, which I might do, is mix some of the foliage color with the gouache, and that'll help some stuff pop out and stand on top. And that'll make things pretty interesting. I may have to go underneath these clips. So like I said, I'm not sure how she's going to mat it and exactly how wide. And like I said, I mean, she might not like this one, which is totally fine. But just in case, it's good practice, good learning experience. I'm just going to the edge, sorry. To move that out the way for y'all. Then up here, just go to the very edge. I don't tape my paper down anymore because of the warping that takes place in the wet and wet, and I can't stretch my paper out. There was a little bit of concern about background, right? So let's look at that. Usually you don't want to put too much detail in the background, but I'm going to play around with it and see how that affects this. Using the side of the rigger as a way to add texture back here. That comes through. Back on this side. Let's come to this other side. And I think I mentioned earlier, the reason this area has a tendency to flood, it's right along the river, and right back in here there's the coulee that runs through the area. And that coulee drains out to the river, to the Vermilion River. But if the river's high, it'll back up here, and yeah, that'll happen. I'll have to ask her if this house had flooded. And she had said, yeah, these ones are the ones that we could see through. Oh. I have to put in the bushes down here. Let's do that now. I could mix a little bit of raw sienna into this. Looks like there's a little bit of these guys on this side too. They're not quite prominent. It is the winter, but I will take an artistic liberty and put them in. Now let them come off the edge. Let them come off the edge here. Comes up a little bit. I am going to use the side. All right, let's put the dark let's accentuate this hand railing again. Let me stand up and take a look. Straight in here. Still a little damp, so could have that happen. Okay. Let's grab. I'm gonna go with the white gouache. Yeah, this is the way to go. I think I said that same thing about the Titan buff, but those two seem to work very well in tandem. And this house is just like white, like just stark white. Yeah, and that pulls that forward. That helps bring the hand railing forward. In hindsight, I could probably done some darker washes and then just went over it with this. Yeah, artistic decision, make that stark white right there. layer, white lines on top. There is a white, that's too thick, way too thick. I'll come back to that in a moment. Let me build this guy up. Build that guy and that guy. And this gentleman. I really hope she likes this one. This is quite tedious. And people that paint realist I have the utmost respect for, because golly, it is very, very tedious. However, the upside is I am not thinking about anything else, which means that it's quite healthy for me, where you're not getting distracted, thinking about other things, worrying about other things. I'll start thinking about putting this in the tree. I don't know if I want to use the, let's use the Buff Titan in the tree. I have a little bit of green from the last time I had used it. Put some highlights on some branches. Now a mixture like this in a Chinese painting, and I'm not Chinese. Chinese painting is what got me back into painting, was the flower painting and whatnot. Whenever you did branches and you put a green on it at the end like this, they called it like the emerald, like placing an emerald on the end of the painting. But we're not at that done stage yet. We can use this Titan buff for some interesting branches. We could also use a razor blade to scrape out branches. And we can also use it like the card that we had used. This will be pretty effective and pretty interesting, I think. I like to use the Titan buff for in the trees for a little bit of highlight, but I like using it on the ground for dead fallen trees. Same thing with buff Titan. Titanium white. I think that it adds just a really cool effect. Alright, time to stand up and stretch and look at it. Everything's starting to come together. Let's see. Let's take a little bit of buff. I'm trying to see the pattern on her doors. And it crosses like this. Like that. It's a diamond pattern, that's what it is. Like that. Crosses. The reason I'm trying to really focus on that is that when my mother bought her front door, she had spent so much time looking at doors and the different glass patterns. So I know that that's super important to people. A little bit of just tickling. That's dark back there. Okay. That curves. That comes out. I've tightened. For lights on the grass. And I think the opacity of it helps with perspective. I have to stand up so I have room. Now, I'll do what I had told you guys earlier about mixing the Titan with some color, or the yeah, I just gotta find the color that I want to use. I'm gonna use lemon yellow most likely. I had a small tube of it, but the cats knocked it over a moment ago. So you'll have to bear with me. But this is a long video to begin with. This is probably, I don't even know what time mark we're at. So instead of applying it on my palette, I'm going to put it over here on this separate one. Because like I said, it gets tainted, it gets corrupted by the chalkiness of this other one. Which I'm going to exploit here, but I just don't want it to mix with my other colors in my palette. So this will help pop forward and sit on top of those other colors. I don't know if I mentioned it, but they call this body color historically. Now they refer to it as gouache, but it is no longer, gouache no longer has that connotation. Gouache was originally just the white. You see how that sits on top? And that gives us another layer. I gotta be careful though because of the pattern. I don't want the pattern to repeat. This is fun. I'm glad that I filmed it in real time rather than time lapse and listen to music. I hope that somebody eventually watches this whole thing, and I hope you all have something, you could take away something from it. Or if you have critiques, criticisms, comments, I would appreciate those, because like I said, this is kind of a little bit out of my element. Okay. Payne's gray. This is light red. Could grab a yellow, green. Just get a little bit more. Try to get a little bit more cheery, because I know I have a tendency to paint dark and gloomy. Of course, I had the Tube 11 yellow out a moment ago, and where did it go? I have this folded up one that shows how much I go through it. Which I guess that constitutes me allowing me to do it a second time. Hey, if you want to be a supporter on Patreon, check it out. Link down below. I can use it to buy art supplies and whatnot. I think I mentioned I have to do an order, hopefully, for blick.com. And it'd be great if they had some sales this week. A few weeks ago they had spend $100, get a $20 coupon. I haven't received the coupon yet, so I'm going to have to mail them about that. But I bought a lot of paper. Paper, I think, is what I go through the most. True fact, I go through a page of painting. Let's get that back in here. Standing up till I'm focused whenever I'm standing up painting, though this probably isn't the best for my posture. Well, let's bring this over fairly to this side too. I don't know why I said fairly. Wow, we really built up something with this one. I'm just standing up, looking, see what needs to be played around with. We could darken up another layer in the branches. And you know what? That's just what we'll do. What song is that from? This number 4 might be a little too thick for this. I'm standing up still. Got my knee on my stool. So I can kind of see the big picture. I think I want a little bit more light red in here. This is nice. We could put a little bit more Titan buff in it, or titanium, but let's try it off. I think we may be almost done. We're done. Oh, we need to put the chairs in here. This whole time I keep on saying we got to put the chairs in. Okay, so they sit right here. A bit higher up. Another chair. Looks like there's 5 of them. Or is it 4? We have this window back here. It has these dark shutters on it. Sometimes I see the tones, but I don't know what they are. I don't know what the image is, what it represents, like that shutter there. I don't think I had seen them the whole time, unfortunately. A little bit of green. This merges. do another dry off. Let me get a little bit of more buff tighten. I need to get a stand-up easel for the house. So that when I'm not painting wet and wet, I can set these up and do that. And do these without having to bend over and all that, you know. Just get a little bit more white. I don't want this to crack. Whenever you use gouache, they say you don't want to paint too thickly or you can get a crack. But whenever I read that, the person that was saying it said in turn, nowhere does anybody say how much paint needs to be put down in order to get a crack to take place. So, it's quite funny. All right. I think at this point I'm just not really making much of an effect. So let me move everything out the way. Let me dry it off. We'll put a mat on top to take a look, and we'll sign it. Get this part clamped down first. There we go. Off. I'm gonna have to sign it with a gel pen. Sign right down here. Now we'll see what it looks like if I put a mat over it. Now I'm going to put a white mat over it because of all the stuff on the inside. I don't want, it's dry. Because that's what it looks like underneath the black. And this is what it'll look like underneath white. Well, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all soon. I'll let you know if I do any changes to this one. All right, have a great day. Bye.